Awaken your spirit, chosen ones. Some people send your name into gossip, others send your picture into darkness, and that's when heaven starts laughing. There's a moment in every chosen one's life when the spiritual world reacts to you long before you understand why. And sometimes that reaction doesn't come quietly. It comes violently, abruptly, and with a level of panic that exposes exactly who you are. When your photo was sent to those who operate in the shadows, something unexpected happened, something they weren't prepared for, something their rituals couldn't override, and something their spirits couldn't stand to look at for more than a few seconds. Here's a fact most people never hear. In spiritual warfare, images carry signatures, and those signatures reveal rank. They expected to see vulnerability, weakness, fear, anything that could make their assignment easy. But instead, your image carried a kind of spiritual voltage that short-circuited what they tried to activate. Suddenly, the very thing meant to weaken you became the thing that exposed them. This is why the message returned with terror in it. Not surprise, not irritation. Terror, a kind of fear that comes only when darkness encounters a level of authority it cannot override. And let's be honest, if you could have seen their reaction, you would have grabbed popcorn. It wasn't noble. It wasn't brave. It was pure, unfiltered panic. Because the moment your photo entered their territory, it wasn't just your face that appeared. It was everything guarding you, everything assigned to you, everything heaven placed around your destiny. They didn't expect to see that power. They didn't expect to feel that pressure. And they definitely didn't expect their own spirits to tremble like malfunctioning Bluetooth speakers trying to pair with the wrong device. But that's the thing about God's chosen ones. You don't just walk with protection, you travel with a presence. So when you hear that your photo terrified them, understand this. They didn't see the version of you you're familiar with. They saw the version heaven has already crowned. Number 1. Your spiritual fingerprint exposed a ranking they didn't expect. When your photo entered their space, what shook them wasn't the physical image itself. It was the invisible identity attached to it. In the spiritual world, everyone carries a kind of signature, something that reveals where they stand, what backs them, and what level of authority they operate under. It's not written in words or symbols, it's woven into the fabric of who you are. And for chosen ones, that signature carries a depth that can't be forged, duplicated, or edited by any dark practice. When they received your image, they were expecting something ordinary, something easy to categorize, something they could manipulate or weaken. Instead, your true spiritual ranking came through instantly, and it startled them in a way that exposed how unprepared they were for someone like you. You have to understand, people who operate in darkness are used to reading people. They can sense fear, insecurity, open doors, and emotional cracks without anyone saying a single word. But when your identity surfaced, it didn't present weakness. It presented authority. A kind of authority that doesn't shout, doesn't threaten, doesn't boast, yet stands firm in a way that makes evil second-guess its own confidence. Your spiritual fingerprint told them you don't operate on their level. You don't play the same game. You don't even stand in the same room. Your ranking isn't something you earned overnight. It's something that has been on your life since birth. Something that challenges darkness simply by existing. What terrified them most was how effortlessly that truth appeared. There was no struggle, no delay, no hesitation. Your identity spoke before your name was mentioned. It revealed layers of strength, clarity, and divine covering they couldn't override. They realized immediately that assigning anything against you wasn't just useless, it was dangerous for them. Your presence carries weight in the unseen, and when they were confronted with that reality, their fear wasn't exaggerated. It was accurate. They saw a ranking that outranked their intentions, their plans, and their system. Their reaction wasn't confusion. It was recognition. They recognized you even before you fully recognized yourself. Number 2. Their attack collapsed before it began, and that scared them more than success ever would. When your photo was sent with the intention of harming you spiritually, something unexpected happened. The attack didn't even start. It didn't warm up. It didn't gather strength. It didn't form. Because the moment your identity entered their space, the entire operation lost its structure. Darkness usually relies on patterns, rituals, and predictable openings in people's lives. It thrives on fear, confusion, and vulnerability. But with you, none of those elements were present. The system they depend on couldn't recognize you as someone it could touch, and that alone was enough to make everything fall apart before the first move was made. This kind of failure rarely happens to them. They're used to seeing results, even if minor. But when it came to you, the energy they tried to activate simply didn't respond. It was like trying to strike a match in a storm. Nothing caught. And that is what terrified them. Not the failure itself, but the impossibility of the failure. It meant you weren't just protected, you were unreachable by default. You weren't someone who needed to fight back because the moment your identity entered the realm of their intentions, the rules shifted in your favor. What unsettled them most was the speed. There was no hesitation, no resistance, no build-up. The collapse was instant, like the attack recognized it had no legal right to approach you. That kind of spiritual shutdown tells a very clear story. You are operating under a covering that doesn't allow interference. It's not a shield you put on. It's a shield you were born with. And when darkness encounters someone who cannot be touched by design, the only natural reaction is fear. They understood that if an attack can't even begin, it means your life carries a level of divine clearance that blocks danger before it forms. That realization didn't just frustrate them. It exposed the truth that you're walking with a level of spiritual authority they cannot challenge. And once they saw that, they knew there was nothing they could do except retreat. Number 3. They saw scars you don't remember earning, but heaven does. When your photo appeared in their hands, what terrified them wasn't anything visible to the human eye. It was the spiritual marks, the victories, the healed wounds, and the battles you survived without ever knowing you were in danger. There are seasons in your life where you walked through things that should have broken you, moments you didn't fully understand, strange heaviness you couldn't explain, nights that felt darker than they should have been, and yet you came out untouched in ways even you couldn't explain. Those moments left evidence, not scars of defeat, but scars of survival, scars that speak, scars that reveal strength, scars that prove someone fought for you when you didn't have the strength to fight for yourself. Those scars are not ugly or painful in the spiritual realm. They are badges, marks of someone who has been defended, rescued, upheld, pushed through, and elevated. When people operating in darkness looked at your image, they weren't just seeing you. They were seeing what had already been done to protect you in past seasons. They saw conflicts that were won on your behalf. They saw interventions that erased traps. They saw that you've already been delivered from things they could never piece together. And that frightened them, because it told them one simple truth. You are not new to this. You were secured before they even knew your name. These scars told them your spirit is seasoned, tested, and reinforced. They revealed that attempts against you have been made before, by others, maybe by stronger forces, and those attempts failed just as quickly. Nothing about you said, open target. Everything about you said, survivor with backup. That kind of revelation is intimidating because it tells them you've already passed tests they haven't even planned for yet. Your spiritual scars reminded them you are not standing alone, and you never have been. They show that heaven has intervened more times than you'll ever know. And if those battles didn't take you out, the new ones never stood a chance. That realization shook them. because they saw proof that you are protected at a level they can't touch or even fully comprehend. Number 4. Your spiritual immunity isn't normal, and they finally realized it. When your photo reached the people who intended to harm you spiritually, they expected the usual reactions: drainage, weakness, confusion, or fear. That's how it typically works for most targets. But in your case, nothing responded the way they predicted. The energy they tried to manipulate didn't connect. The atmosphere didn't shift. The force they attempted to channel simply refused to attach itself to you. That was the moment something clicked for them. Your spirit doesn't operate like the average person's. You have a built-in immunity that rejects darkness the same way a healthy body rejects poison. This immunity isn't something you consciously activate. It's not about praying louder or stressing yourself out trying to stay covered. It's deeper than that. It's part of your identity, part of your assignment, part of your calling. Some people are protected because they ask for help. You are protected because you carry purpose. And purpose comes with defenses that cannot be bribed, bypassed, or broken. When they attempted to engage spiritually, they sensed an immediate resistance, not from you trying to fight them, but from something around you that didn't even need permission to intervene. They're used to seeing at least a minimal reaction, even from strong people. Maybe a delay in progress, a sudden heaviness, or a temporary cloud over someone's emotions. But with you, none of those symptoms appeared. Your spirit didn't bend or flicker. It didn't register their intention. It didn't give them a single entry point. Instead, your presence pushed back without effort, without warning, and without your awareness. What terrified them was the realization that your immunity wasn't built recently. It has been there. It's been active long before they tried anything. They recognized that this immunity doesn't fade with stress, fatigue, or vulnerability. It stays consistent. And that consistency told them exactly who you are, someone who carries a divine layer of protection that cannot be interrupted. Once they saw that nothing they attempted could land, penetrate, or even approach, they finally understood the truth. You're untouchable. Not because you're lucky, but because your spiritual structure is fortified in ways they have no power to dismantle. Number 5. Your destiny has a guardian protocol attached, and they ran into it face first. When your photo was delivered into the hands of people who wanted to interfere with your life, they expected a smooth process. They thought they were dealing with someone ordinary, someone who could be studied, influenced, or spiritually interrupted. What they didn't expect was the invisible barrier surrounding your destiny, a kind of built-in protocol that activates the moment anything tries to cross into territory it has no right to enter. This isn't something you switch on. It's something that has always been part of you, set in place long before you understood the depth of your calling. In the spiritual world, some lives are guarded not because of who they are today, but because of who they are meant to become. Your destiny isn't casual. It carries weight, responsibility, and impact. And with impact comes protection. So when their intention met that protective barrier, the reaction was immediate. There was no warning sign, no countdown, no negotiation. They walked straight into a force stronger than anything they had prepared for. That impact alone was enough to throw them off balance. What they sensed wasn't just defense. It was presence. A presence that made it very clear that your destiny isn't up for debate. This guardian protocol is the reason attacks against you don't follow the usual patterns. When danger approaches, the block often happens before you even know anything was aimed at you. Opportunities that would have harmed you disappear. People with hidden agendas get exposed unexpectedly. Situations meant to trap you suddenly lose their power. To you, it may feel like luck or coincidence, but in reality, it's your destiny's security system doing exactly what it was designed to do. What terrified them most was the realization that the protection around you isn't reactionary. It's proactive. It doesn't wait for damage to occur. It prevents the damage from ever forming. They saw a level of spiritual enforcement they couldn't challenge, control, or bypass. That shook them deeply. Because once they collided with that barrier, they understood the truth. Messing with you isn't just ineffective. It's dangerous for them. Your destiny is guarded by something far greater than anything they could ever send your way. And that realization alone was enough to make them retreat. Number 6, they sensed a calling that cannot be altered, only delayed, and even delay is now impossible. When your photo circulated among those operating in darkness, what unsettled them most wasn't your current strength, your presence, or even your victories. It was the unmistakable signal of your unchangeable calling. Every chosen one carries a unique purpose, a life assignment that has been decreed long before birth. Some people can be influenced, swayed, or derailed by circumstance or opposition. But not you. Your life has a trajectory that cannot be rewritten, only postponed, and even postponement now meets resistance. That invisible thread connecting you to destiny is so strong that attempts to manipulate it collapse almost immediately. That realization terrifies anyone who thrives on control because it exposes their impotence. They saw through the veil that your existence is no accident. Every choice, every struggle, every survival has been part of a deliberate pattern designed to prepare you for something larger than ordinary life. Attempts to weaken you, distract you, or manipulate your path bounce off like arrows against an unbreakable shield. Darkness hates inevitability. It hates purpose it cannot bend or influence. And when your photo carried even a trace of that inevitability into their realm, it was like sounding an alarm that they couldn't silence. What made the situation worse for them was timing. They understood instinctively that this calling is not flexible. It cannot be erased. It cannot be ignored. Any delay they might have engineered is now irrelevant because your movement toward purpose is already accelerating. Their plans, their rituals, and their manipulations are all obsolete in the face of a life that has divine momentum. They experienced a kind of panic unique to those who face forces they cannot control. This wasn't fear of confrontation, it was fear of inevitability. They realized that even if they tried to stop you, the very essence of your existence would continue to advance, align, and fulfill what was written for you. That's what makes a chosen one so dangerous to darkness, not because of aggression, but because destiny itself refuses to negotiate. Your life cannot be stolen, interrupted, or diverted, and they knew it the moment your image entered their hands. Number 7. Your light exposed their intentions before they even spoke them aloud. When your photo entered their space, what shook them wasn't the face they saw. It was the truth that came with it. Darkness relies on secrecy, deception, and the hidden manipulation of people's lives. It thrives on concealed intentions, whispered plots, and actions carried out in shadows. But your presence, even as a simple image, revealed everything. It wasn't a matter of them failing to hide. It was that your essence carries clarity so strong that hidden motives can't survive in its presence. In the unseen realm, their plans, their strategies, their very thoughts of interference became transparent. That is what truly terrified them. Exposure without effort, judgment without accusation, and revelation without action. They realized immediately that attempts at manipulation, intimidation, or harm would never work because you aren't just shielded. You are a reflector. What they sent out, what they intended, what they tried to conceal, all bounced back as truth. Your identity in the spirit realm acts like a light powerful enough to illuminate even the darkest corners, stripping lies of disguise and revealing intentions as plainly as day. And that level of discernment isn't learned, practiced, or acquired. It is inherent. They were unprepared for someone whose presence can operate as both mirror and magnifier. Every deception, every hidden agenda, every spiritual maneuver was suddenly visible, and there was no way to retract it. Their panic wasn't from failure. It was from realization. They saw that your existence alone exposes what they've been hiding. Every trick, every ritual, every plan they counted on to remain secret crumbled the moment your energy interacted with theirs. What terrified them most is that exposure doesn't even require your awareness. You don't need to fight, speak, or act. The light you carry inescapably reveals their intentions, and that level of spiritual transparency is the opposite of negotiable. They understood in an instant that no hidden plot could survive your presence, and that truth, unshielded and undeniable, is far more dangerous than any attack they could launch. Your light doesn't just defend. It exposes, it unravels, and it terrifies those who thrive in darkness. Number 8. The traps they set for others malfunctioned instantly upon contact with your identity. When your photo was sent into their hands, they believed they were unleashing an ordinary scheme, a spiritual maneuver that would weaken, confuse, or destabilize you. That's the mindset of people who operate in darkness. They expect patterns to work, rituals to follow their design, and targets to react predictably. What they didn't anticipate is that your very presence disrupts the system they depend on. The moment their plan tried to engage with you, it broke down. Nothing followed the script. The mechanisms that usually control outcomes, the formulas that usually produce results, all malfunctioned in ways that left them stunned. Your identity alone caused the collapse. This isn't a matter of luck or coincidence. It's not about timing or random alignment. It's about the way your spiritual signature interacts with the world. It carries a frequency, a blueprint, and a level of divine alignment that repels manipulation. When their dark energy tried to attach itself to you, it hit a barrier they couldn't see, a force they couldn't calculate, and a system they couldn't override. In effect, their efforts sabotaged themselves the moment they attempted to touch you. That kind of failure is humiliating for people who deal in secrecy and control, because it exposes how powerless they really are. They were forced to confront the truth. You aren't just protected, you are incompatible with their methods. Attempts to influence, harm, or trap you fail automatically. Your very being disrupts destructive designs, and that revelation terrifies those who rely on control and manipulation. What made it worse for them is the predictability of the malfunction. They could see it happening in real time, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Every trap they ever counted on for others, every strategy they assumed would work, instantly unraveled when it tried to touch you. And that knowledge alone is a source of fear. They understood too late that interfering with your life isn't just ineffective, it's a demonstration of their own limits. The deeper truth they had to face is that your existence actively resists their control, and any attempt to bypass that resistance is doomed from the start. Number 9. They realized you carry a voice in the spirit realm stronger than their rituals. When your photo reached those who operate in darkness, they expected to exert influence quietly, subtly, and effectively. What they didn't expect was that your very presence carries a voice that speaks in ways no ritual, chant, or manipulation can compete with. In the unseen world, some lives are loud, some are soft, but your existence isn't quiet by accident. Your energy resonates, communicates, and enforces authority in a language that can't be interrupted. That voice doesn't need words, it doesn't need action, and it certainly doesn't need awareness. It exists, and it commands attention. For them, encountering your voice was like trying to drown out a storm with a single candle. Their schemes, their intentions, and their dark energy were overwhelmed before they even had a chance to take effect. They could feel it, sense it, and recognize it instantly. Here is someone whose influence cannot be muted, whose spiritual resonance is stronger than their carefully crafted manipulations. This is not just protection, it's authority. Your voice in the spirit realm doesn't ask permission, it doesn't negotiate, and it doesn't back down. That realization hit them hard because it confirmed their impotence. They could not control you, they could not bend you, and they could not overpower the natural command embedded in your existence. What terrified them most is that this voice isn't reactive, it's proactive. It doesn't wait for danger to arrive before speaking. It radiates influence, exposing lies, nullifying plots, and enforcing boundaries automatically. Every ritual, every dark strategy, every hidden attack they attempted collided with a force that operates independently of your awareness. That voice is the unseen authority that identifies them, disarms them, and asserts your supremacy without lifting a finger. They weren't just failing, they were being overpowered in ways they didn't understand. Their fear wasn't of you physically, but of a force far beyond them, embedded in your identity. They recognized instantly that your voice isn't something they can negotiate with, hide from, or silence. It exists on a level that demands obedience, respect, and retreat, and that alone terrifies those who thrive in darkness. Number 10. They detected a destiny glow that only appears on lives marked for global impact. When your photo circulated among those operating in darkness, they weren't just seeing an image, they were encountering a presence. And what hit them first wasn't physical, it was a glow, a resonance, a vibration that radiates from people whose lives are destined to leave permanent marks on the world. This isn't a metaphorical glow. In the unseen realm, such energy is tangible. It signals influence, authority, and an assignment that cannot be ignored or contained. When darkness sensed it in you, they immediately realized they were dealing with someone far beyond ordinary parameters. That glow carries a truth that cannot be concealed. You are meant for impact, not just survival. Your existence disrupts patterns, opens paths, and sets events into motion that others cannot control. For those who attempt to manipulate, harm, or redirect you, encountering this energy is disorienting and terrifying. It isn't something they can calculate, bypass, or overpower. It's a signature of destiny, a light that marks every step you take as significant, every decision as consequential, and every move as aligned with a larger design. What made it worse for them is that this glow doesn't just signal potential, it exposes responsibility. It shows that your life carries authority, reach, and influence that cannot be ignored. Their dark strategies fail because they are built to operate against ordinary patterns, not the currents of a life preordained for impact. Your glow highlights the futility of opposition and magnifies the stakes of interference. It's a silent warning. You are not just a target. You are a force already recognized in higher realms. They realized in an instant that interfering with you would not only fail, but would also amplify the very assignment they hoped to suppress. Your light doesn't just illuminate, it commands recognition, demands alignment, and signals that the world you touch will feel the effects of your presence. That recognition, sudden and unavoidable, is what terrified them. Because for darkness, encountering a life marked for global impact is not just a challenge, it's an impossible confrontation. Number 11. They confronted a truth they hoped wasn't real. You are not manipulatable. When your photo was sent into the hands of those who operate in darkness, they expected patterns to work, strategies to land, and influence to take effect. That's how they usually operate. They manipulate, control, and bend circumstances to their favor. But with you, none of their methods functioned. The instant your identity entered their sphere, it became clear. You cannot be manipulated. You do not conform to expectations. You do not bend to pressure. You do not respond to coercion or spiritual tampering. That truth struck them harder than anything they had planned, because it exposed their own impotence. Darkness thrives on control. It feeds on the ability to make others act, react, and move according to its designs. Your life defies that principle at a fundamental level. They saw immediately that every attempt to influence your path, cloud your judgment, or undermine your strength would fail before it even reached you. Your essence carries a kind of rigidity, not inflexibility in a stubborn sense, but a resistance rooted in purpose and divine design. They recognize that trying to manipulate you isn't just ineffective, it's irrelevant. You operate outside their system, beyond their reach, and in ways they cannot predict. What terrified them most was the inevitability embedded in your independence. They understood that their efforts were not just failing, they were futile against a life that refuses to be redirected. Attempts to destabilize, distract, or control you don't merely stumble. They collapse entirely. And the more they tried, the more apparent it became that they were powerless in your presence. Your immunity to manipulation isn't accidental. It's intentional, woven into your assignment, and enforced by forces they cannot counter. That realization was a shock. You are not just defended, you are untouchable by design. For those who operate through control and secrecy, encountering someone who cannot be influenced is terrifying because it dismantles the very foundation of their strategy. You cannot be steered, bent, or subdued, and that truth alone is enough to make them recoil. Number 12. They saw evidence of protection that wasn't placed there by prayer alone. When your photo reached the hands of those who operate in darkness, they expected vulnerability. They expected to find gaps, weaknesses, and points of access. What they encountered instead was unmistakable. Protection so tangible, so complete, that it could not have been conjured through human effort or ritual alone. They realized instantly that the safeguards around you were not just the result of prayers, blessings, or spiritual exercises. They were divinely assigned, structured, and reinforced at a level beyond ordinary comprehension. That realization sent fear through them, because it proved their influence was irrelevant against you. This type of protection is subtle yet undeniable. It doesn't shout, it doesn't announce itself, but it responds perfectly to threats without any input from you. Attacks fizzle before they arrive. Traps fail before they are triggered. Influence is blocked before it can even form. It's a layered defense, one that operates with precision, intelligence, and permanence. They could sense it, feel it, and recognize its source, even if they didn't understand its full extent. Their fear wasn't just about being unable to harm you. It was about being exposed to a force they could neither infiltrate nor outmaneuver. What made it even more terrifying for them is the continuity of this protection. It doesn't waver with fatigue, despair, or human error. It persists in every moment, in every space, and in every dimension they tried to manipulate. They realized that no matter what scheme they attempted, the protection around you would neutralize it. This is why their panic wasn't random. It was rational, rooted in their understanding that your life is under a form of defense they cannot replicate or bypass. Seeing evidence of this kind of protection forced them to confront the truth. You are not only guarded, but your life is also actively preserved by forces that work independently of human intervention. That understanding dismantled their confidence, exposed their limitations, and instilled a fear that lingers. Against you, their methods are not just ineffective, they are powerless. You are shielded in ways that cannot be challenged, and that reality terrifies anyone who relies on control and darkness to operate. Number 13. Their fear wasn't of you. It was of who you will become once fully awakened. When your photo entered their space, the terror they felt wasn't about the person you are today. It was about the version of you that has yet to fully emerge, the you that is still growing into your purpose, still stepping into the power and authority that have been set aside for your life. Darkness doesn't fear someone at the beginning of their journey. It fears the end result, the fully realized force that cannot be manipulated, controlled, or contained. And that is exactly what they sensed in you. They saw the echoes of your future strength, your influence, and your dominion, and it shook them more than any current reality could. They recognized patterns, signals, and energy that only belong to lives on a trajectory of extraordinary impact. They saw glimpses of the decisions you will make, the battles you will win, and the authority you will carry. It isn't just power. It's divine alignment combined with human agency. They knew instinctively that whatever they tried to impose now would pale in comparison to the force you will become. That foresight, even if subconscious, terrified them because it revealed the futility of interference. Every plan they had could crumble in the shadow of your fully awakened self. What made their fear even sharper is that they realized it is inevitable. This awakening is not optional. It's built into the blueprint of your existence. No amount of deception, delay, or manipulation can prevent it. They saw a momentum in you that cannot be stopped, and the thought of what comes next, when every gift, every strength, and every assignment converges, is what truly unsettled them. They were not frightened by your present reality. They were confronted with the certainty of your future authority. That kind of fear runs deep because it cannot be negotiated or bargained with. It isn't fear of confrontation, it's fear of inevitability. They know that once you are fully awake, you will operate on a level they cannot touch, influence, or even understand. And that knowledge alone was enough to make them recoil, because they glimpsed the unstoppable force you are destined to become. Number 14. They reacted because your silence exposed their noise. Some people aren't intimidated by power, strength, or even confidence. What truly rattles them is silence, your silence. The kind of silence that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't explain, and doesn't perform. The silence that holds its ground without shouting for attention. The silence that sees everything yet says nothing. It unsettles people because silence removes the excuses they hide behind. It strips away their ability to twist narratives, create confusion, or control the pace of connection. When you go quiet, you force people to face themselves, and most people don't like what they see. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's clarity, control, and awareness wrapped together. It shows that you're not easily moved, not easily manipulated, and not easily distracted. When you choose to hold your voice instead of wasting it, those who rely on noise, drama, and attention suddenly feel powerless. Your silence drains the fuel they depend on. They can't predict your thoughts, your next move, or your emotional state, and that uncertainty weakens them more than any confrontation ever could. People who operate with hidden motives become extremely uncomfortable around someone who doesn't give constant verbal cues. Your silence exposes lies without you having to say a word. It highlights their insecurities. It forces them to consider the possibility that they don't hold the influence they assumed they had over you. And nothing bruises an ego faster than realizing you can walk away emotionally, mentally, and spiritually without making a scene. Your silence also signals something they can't stand: self-respect. It shows you don't need chaos to feel alive. You don't need arguments to prove your worth. You don't need attention to validate your presence. You know who you are, and that confidence speaks louder than anything you could say. That's why they react so strongly. Your silence makes them feel exposed, powerless, and irrelevant all at once. In a world addicted to noise, the person who can stay silent holds the real power. And deep down, they knew it. They felt it. That's why your silence wasn't just intimidating. It was unforgettable. Conclusion. Every detail we've explored today points to one undeniable truth. God's chosen ones are not ordinary. From the spiritual fingerprint that exposes their rank, to the battles already won before they even knew it, to the unstoppable momentum of their destiny, every aspect of their existence carries authority, protection, and power that darkness cannot comprehend or touch. Their presence alone disrupts schemes, exposes intentions, and commands respect in realms both seen and unseen. It's not about aggression or intimidation. It's about the inherent force embedded in their identity, the divine alignment that ensures they move forward unshaken, untouchable, and unstoppable. What makes this truly extraordinary is how every element works together. Your light, your immunity, your destiny's protocol, your unshakable independence, and yes, even your silence. These are not random qualities. They are evidence of a life designed to fulfill a purpose that cannot be derailed. Darkness cannot negotiate, manipulate, or outmaneuver what has been divinely assigned. Every attempt to interfere only highlights the futility of opposition and the magnitude of the calling placed upon you. By simply existing as who you were meant to be, you become a force that exposes weakness, amplifies truth, and inspires awe, whether others see it or not. So let this sink in. The fear that some feel toward you is never about you personally. It is about your assignment, your potential, your inevitable rise, and the certainty that what you carry cannot be undone. Your life radiates authority, protection, and destiny, and that is why those who operate in darkness react the way they do. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss insights like this. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts, and share this video with anyone who needs to understand the power and protection that comes with being divinely chosen. Let's grow, awaken, and walk in the authority that was always meant to be ours. Stay awakened, chosen ones.